Hello and welcome back to the Accounting and Business Breakdown channel. I am genuinely buzzing to be back with you today because we are continuing our specific sub-series, Beyond 49%.
It's great to be here.
And today, we are stripping everything back. We're going right to the foundation. Literally, we are talking about the foundation's level exams.
We are, and you're right to really emphasize that word foundation. We so often look at these exams, business and technology, financial accounting, management accounting, and we have this tendency to just dismiss them.
Yeah, you do. You think of them as the introductory phase.
The warm-up.
Exactly. It's the preseason, right? It's the easy stuff before the real games start at the skills and professional levels. I think a lot of people assume you can just breeze through these with, I don't know, a weekend of cramming.
And that is the dangerous assumption. That mindset, the idea that foundations equals easy, is exactly why we see pass rates that, well, while they're generally higher than the later stages, they still leave a massive number of students stranded at that heartbreaking 48 or 49% mark.
It's brutal.
It really is. The examiner reports tell a very, very different story than the one students are telling themselves.
And that is our mission today. We are going to dig into the specific traps. And I want to be really clear here. We aren't talking about complex theories or high-level strategy. Not today.
No.
We are talking about the behavioral slips, the reading errors, and the common sense mistakes that trip people up. We want to identify why smart students who absolutely know the material, fail these so-called simple exams.
We call it deceptive simplicity. It's a term we use a lot because the content feels familiar, or maybe, because you've worked in an office for a few years. You lower your guard.
You get comfortable.
You stop analyzing and start assuming, and that is exactly when the examiner catches you.
Before we dive in, I just want to place this in context for our listeners who have been following the entire Beyond 49% series. We've already covered Beyond 49% skills level traps, where we talked about how execution errors and time management can just kill your score in that middle tier.
Right. And looking forward, we have the scary one. Beyond 49%, professional level the beast. In that discussion, we really focus on how the bad habits formed now at this foundation level become these insurmountable walls later on.
100%. And we also have Beyond 49%, the examiner's playbook, which breaks down how the papers are actually marked. But today is about that first layer. If you were sitting FBT, FFA, or FMA, or whatever code your specific foundation paper uses, this is for you.
And the goal isn't to teach you the syllabus today. I'm not going to sit here and lecture you on debits and credits. I want to teach you how to pass the exam, how to think like someone who passes.
I love that distinction. Okay, let's get into it. The catchphrase for this session, and we will come back to this, is we want you to think ahead to step beyond 49%.
Let's start with Section A. This is your home turf for objective test questions, the MCQs. The seemingly straightforward pick A, B, or C questions.
You would think these are the safest marks on the paper, wouldn't you? Even if you have absolutely no idea, you've got a 25% chance of getting it right just by closing your eyes and clicking.
And yet, this is where the common sense crap kills candidates, particularly in business and technology, FBT.
Okay. Why that paper?
Well, the examiner explicitly notes that students often rely on their instinct or their workplace experience rather than what is actually in the syllabus.
Right. I saw this in the report regarding artificial intelligence. This seems like a topic everyone thinks they know. I mean, we all use ChatGPT. We see robots in movies. I feel like I could answer an AI question without even opening a textbook.
Precisely. And that familiarity is the trap. There was a specific question mentioned in the examiner's report asking about AI. One of the statements was something like, AI systems are primarily designed to automate repetitive physical tasks.
Okay, I'm going to play the student here. That sounds true. When I think of automation, I picture a robot arm in a car factory welding doors. That's AI, isn't it?
It is an application of AI, but is it the primary design purpose? Uh-oh.
I feel a trap.
It's a big one. The examiner points out that this statement is false for two reasons. First, AI is about effectiveness and efficiency, not just automation. But second, and more importantly, it covers non-physical tasks. Processing data, making decisions, running algorithms.
Okay, so the trap is assuming a partial truth is the whole truth.
That is it, in a nutshell. You see AI and robot, and your brain clicks true because of pop culture, not because of the study guide. You have to answer based on the definition of AI in the text, which is about the simulation of human intelligence processes, not just mechanical arms.
Wow. Okay, that's subtle but deadly. There was another one in the FBT report that made me laugh, but it also made me pause because I think I would have gotten it wrong.
Let me guess, the committee effectiveness one.
That's the one, the open-ended discussion trap.
Ah, yes, a classic.
So the question asked, what is necessary for a committee to work effectively? And one of the options was open-ended discussion.
And again, applying that common sense, what does your brain tell you?
My brain says, well, surely we want everyone to speak their mind freely. Brainstorming is good. You want diverse opinions, right? Sounds so positive.
It does. Blue sky thinking. In a creative meeting, maybe. But we are talking about a formal committee structure within a business governance syllabus. In that very specific context, open-ended discussion is a disaster.
A disaster. That's a strong word.
Think about it. A committee exists to make decisions. It has a purpose. If you have open-ended, unstructured discussion, the meeting drags on for 4 hours and nothing gets decided.
Okay, I've been in that meeting.
We all have. It kills time efficiency. Committees need terms of reference, an agenda, and a chair to limit discussion to the decision at hand. The examiner explicitly stated that open-ended discussion is rarely beneficial because it prevents the committee from discharging its duties on time.
So if you answer like a nice friendly colleague, you fail the question.
Yes.
You have to answer like a structured administrator who's got somewhere else to be in an hour.
That is a perfect way to put it. You are not being tested on your personality or your desire for a friendly chat. You are being tested on the framework of corporate governance.
Let's move to management accounting, FMA. The traps here feel a bit different. They seem less about definitions and more about, well, starting too soon.
The incomplete calculation trap, this is rampant in the FMA feedback. Students do the hard part of the math. They get a number that looks like a valid answer on their calculator, and they stop. But they haven't actually answered the specific question that was asked.
The Mothco example was the one that stood out to me, and I want to slow down here because the terminology itself can get a little confusing.
Yes. This was a standard costing question, and the requirement was very, very specific. It asked for the standard contribution for actual sales.
Okay, wait. Let's unpack that phrase, standard contribution for actual sales.
Yeah.
If I'm a student in the exam, my brain just hears calculate profit or calculate contribution. Why is that specific phrasing designed to trip people up?
It's a classic case of what you could call cognitive tunneling. Think of it like a recipe. You have your budget. That's the perfect, beautiful cake you plan to bake, the one in the picture. Then you have the actual, that's the slightly burnt, lopsided mess you actually made.
Right. I know that reality well.
Right.
My cakes rarely look like the picture.
Chuckles. Don't we all? Now, usually, accounting asks you to compare the perfect cake to the burnt cake. You're doing a full variance analysis. But this question, the Mothco question, it didn't ask for the burnt cake. It asked for the standard contribution on actual sales.
Okay, so what is that?
It's asking, if you took the actual number of cakes you sold, but you sold them at the perfect budgeted price with the perfect budgeted cost, what would you have made?
Ah, I see. It's a hybrid number. It's not real life, but it's not the budget either. It's a stepping stone, a middle point between the two.
Exactly. It's a phantom figure. It's the flexed budget. And the trap is that students are so trained to calculate the final real-world profit or contribution that they blast right past this phantom figure.
They don't stop at the right place.
They do the math correctly, they get the number the examiner asked for, but then they think, wait, I'm not done yet. And they keep adding in variances until they arrive at the wrong destination. They overbake the cake.
So they hit the middle step, but they don't realize that was the finish line for this specific question.
Correct. They miss the destination because they are on autopilot. It's like a math problem asking, what is x plus y? And the student solves for z as well, just to be safe. But in a number entry question, if you type in the final profit figure instead of the standard contribution figure, you get 0 marks.
It's not that they couldn't do the math, they just didn't respect the stop sign.
Precisely. And another painful one in management accounting, speaking of incomplete calculations, is the coefficient of variation.
Oh, statistics, everyone's favorite.
The feedback here was just tragic. To get the coefficient of variation, you first have to calculate the standard deviation. That is a complex calculation. It involves the mean, the differences squared, the root. It's a lot of work.
Right, it's a multi-step process, and students were doing that work correctly.
Many of them were. They calculated the standard deviation perfectly, a really tough number to get. And then they entered that as the final answer.
But wait, the coefficient of variation is the standard deviation divided by the mean. It's the last step.
It is the last step. It's a measure of risk relative to the return. Standard deviation is just the raw risk. The coefficient is the ratio. They did 90% of the heavy lifting. They climbed the mountain, got to the final ridge, and then just sat down instead of taking that one last step to the summit.
They missed the final division.
They missed the final division step. And again, 0 marks. The computer doesn't know you were close.
That's just heartbreaking.
It is. And this is why we say read the requirement, then read it again. Then do your calculation. Then read the requirement a 3rd time to ensure your final number on the screen matches the words in the question.
Let's shift gears to financial accounting, FFA, the sign and reversal trap. This sounds like a nightmare for anyone who gets their left and right mixed up.
It is the absolute bane of the bank reconciliation. The examiner report highlighted a scenario with a company called Sigma Co. and another called Vine.
The classic bank rec problem. You've got a balance, and you've got a list of errors or missing items, and you have to get to the corrected balance.
And the specific trap here is what we call the direction of travel. The examiner noted a situation where a customer check was rejected by the bank.
A bounce check.
Right. Now, the student knows this is important. They know it affects the balance. They identify the item correctly. They're on the right track. But then they apply the adjustment in the wrong direction.
So if the check bounced, that means the money never really arrived or was taken back out. So you should credit the cash book. You should reduce the balance.
Exactly. But so many students debit it. They see a number, they know it needs to be processed, and they add it. Or they assume bank rejected means bank charges and treat it as a new expense rather than a reversal of a receipt they thought they had.
The examiner's insight on this was really interesting. They said, it's not that students don't know what a rejected check is. It's that they don't pause to ask that simple question. Does this increase or decrease my balance?
It's a reflex error. You see a number, you jam it into the calculator, you need to visualize the T account, even if it's just for a second. Close your eyes. I thought I had money. That was a debit. I actually don't have that money. That requires a credit. If you don't pause for that visualization, you are essentially guessing with the signs.
And in a number entry question, if you add 150 instead of subtracting 150, you aren't just off by 150, you were off by 300.
You're doubly wrong. And there are no method marks in Section A. You are either right or you are wrong. It's binary.
So to summarize Section A traps then, in BT, don't trust your common sense. Trust the syllabus. In MA, don't stop calculating until you've answered the specific question. Watch out for that phantom figure. And in FA, pause on every single adjustment to check the direction of travel.
That is the formula to get through the first half of the paper unscathed.
All right, let's move on to the heavier stuff. Section B. These are the multitask questions, the MTQs. This is where you have a scenario and multiple requirements linked to it.
And this is where we see what I call the cardinal sins of accounting starting to appear.
You sound very ominous when you say that.
I am. Because in financial accounting, there is one trap that the examiner mentions repeatedly year after year. It is the proportional consolidation sin.
Group accounts. Parent company buys a subsidiary.
Right. Let's say parent co buys 80% of subsidiary co. The requirement asks you to prepare the consolidated statement of financial position.
Okay. Can I play devil's advocate for a second here? Because this always confused me. If I buy 80% of a company, logic dictates I own 80% of their stuff. If I buy 80% of a pizza with you, I don't get to eat the whole pizza.
Mm-hmm.
Why on earth would I put 100% of their inventory on my balance sheet? It feels like lying.
That is the intuitive reaction. And that is exactly why this trap catches so many smart people. You are thinking about ownership. But the statement of financial position isn't just about ownership. It's about control.
Okay, distinguish those two for me. What's the practical difference?
Imagine you buy a house. You put down a deposit, maybe the bank owns most of it, maybe you share the title with a partner. But if you are the one who decides what color to paint the walls, who sleeps in the master bedroom, and when to fix the roof, you control the house.
I control the asset.
You control the whole asset. You don't just control 80% of the front door, you decide who walks through it. In accounting, if you control the subsidiary, which usually happens when you own more than 50%, you are deemed to be responsible for 100% of its assets and liabilities.
And the fact that I only own 80%.
The fact that you owe 20% of the value to someone else, that's just a line item in equity called non-controlling interest.
Yeah.
But the machinery, the cash, the inventory, that is all under your command.
So when I see 80% acquisition, I need to suppress my pizza logic and switch to landlord logic.
Yes, that's a great way to put it. The trap is that the student thinks, I own 80%, So I will take 80% of their inventory and 80% of their cash and add that to my own. And that's proportional consolidation.
And the examiner was pretty emphatic about this, weren't they? What happens if you do that?
Yes. Doing proportional consolidation usually it results in failing that entire question. It shows you don't understand the absolute core concept of group accounts. It's not a calculation error at that point. It's a fundamental conceptual failure.
So the rule is if you see an 80% or 60% acquisition, you paint a big sign on your screen that says ADD 100%.
Exactly. Do not touch that percentage until you get way down to the equity and non-controlling interest calculations. Line by line, it's 100%.
What about the disclosure note blind spot? This is another FA trap that I thought was really interesting.
This is interesting because it shows how students prioritize numbers over words, even in a numbers exam. The example given was a property, plant, and equipment disclosure note, a PPE note.
Right. The big table with cost, depreciation, carrying amount, all that stuff.
Yes. And students spend ages calculating the depreciation charge, the revaluation surplus, the carrying amount at year end. They get all the math right. But the question also asks for the narrative disclosure requirements of the standard.
Like what, for example?
Like stating the effective date of the revaluation, or stating whether an independent valuer was used to value the asset.
The text bits, the words.
The text bits. And students so often leave these blank, or they just guess. They think, I'm an accountant, I do numbers. But the exam requires you to understand the reporting standards, and the standard says you must disclose who valued the asset and when.
And ignoring that is just throwing away easy marks. You don't even have to calculate anything. You just have to know the rule and type it out.
It's what we call the disclosure note blind spot. You are so focused on the complex depreciation math that you become completely blind to the simple tick box requirements of the standard that are worth just as many marks.
Let's look at business and technology, FBT, in Section B. These are the scenario-based questions. You get a little story about a company, maybe some employees, and you have to apply a theory.
The scenario navigation trap here is fascinating. It's not about what you know, it's about how you read.
The reading order error.
Yes. Most students open the question, they see a giant wall of text describing Company X and its HR problems, and they just start reading from the top. They spend 3 minutes reading the story. They get confused. Wait, is Shireen the manager or the assistant? What product do they sell again? Then finally, after all that, they look at the question requirement.
And the requirement asks something really specific like, which stakeholder group does Schreier belong to, according to Mendelow's framework?
Right. And now what do they have to do? They have to go back and read the entire text again to find that one specific detail. They have wasted 3 minutes and clogged their working memory with a load of irrelevant details.
So the fix is, you just reverse it.
Always. Every single time. Read the requirement first. The question, identify the barrier to time management that Shireen is exhibiting. Okay, now I have a searchlight. Now I go into the text looking specifically for time management barriers. I ignore the bit about the company's product line or the office layout. I am hunting for the answer.
It anchors your brain. It turns a passive reading exercise into an active, targeted hunting exercise.
Exactly. The examiner explicitly advises this. Read the requirement, then the scenario. It saves time, it reduces panic, and it dramatically increases your accuracy.
Okay, Section C. Let's talk about time management and behavior. And I absolutely have to bring up the reasonableness check because this is my favorite anecdote from the entire stack of examiner reports.
The 27 million days incident.
I mean, it sounds like a sci-fi movie title. But I have to stop you because my brain is trying to process that number. I'm picturing a student in the exam hall. The clock is ticking, the fluorescent lights are humming, they punch the numbers into the calculator, and they get 27 million.
And they type it in, they hit submit, they don't blink.
That is what fascinates me. To get to 27 million days of inventory. That means if this company was selling woolly mammoth steaks, they still wouldn't have sold out of their initial stock by today.
Exactly. They're holding inventory from the Pleistocene era.
So what happens psychologically? Because clearly this student knows that's impossible. No business on earth has inventory for 74,000 years. Why do they hit submit?
It's what we call calculator hypnosis. You trust the machine more than you trust your own sense of reality. You enter a state where the numbers cease to be physical things like boxes in a warehouse and just become abstract widgets on a screen.
So the student isn't thinking, does this make sense?
No, they're thinking, did I follow the formula? Did I divide the right number by the right number? They've disconnected from the real world.
They're just a cog in the calculation machine.
Completely. And the examiner's point here is brutal but fair. You cannot be a professional accountant if you don't have a smell test. If the answer smells wrong, if it implies your inventory is older than civilization, you have to stop.
It's that computer says no mentality. Well, the calculator said 27 million, so it must be true.
You have to retain a connection to the real world. If you calculate that a bus ticket costs $1,400 per kilometer, check your math. If you calculate a profit margin of 900%, check your math.
The examiner's note was quite funny, but the lesson underneath it is incredibly serious. In the heat of the exam, do not lose your common sense. Sanity, check your answers.
Is this number even possible? That 1-second pause can save you the entire mark. Because if you see 27 million, you know you've probably just flipped the fraction or moved the decimal. You can fix it instantly. But if you submit it, it's gone.
Another behavioral trap mentioned in the FBT report is this idea of stopping for perfection.
This is the flag and move on strategy. The examiner makes a really important point that the FBT exam is not usually time pressured. Most students finish early. Unless
they get stuck on that one hard question.
Exactly. In objective tests, almost all the marks are equal. A really hard, complex theory question is worth 2 marks. An easy definition question is also worth 2 marks.
So spending 10 minutes wrestling with a hard one is just strategic suicide.
It is. It's terrible exam technique. If you stare at a question for 2 minutes and you genuinely don't know it, guess, flag it, and move on.
And the examiner reminds us there is no negative marking.
That is the absolute key. Leaving a blank is the only true failure. Let's just do the math on this for a second. If you have a question with 4 options and you have no idea, you had a 25% chance. If you can eliminate 2 obviously wrong answers, you suddenly have a 50% chance.
And if you leave it blank?
You have a 0% chance. Guaranteed failure on that question.
It feels wrong to guess, though, doesn't it? As accountants, we're taught to be precise and certain.
In the exam hall, precision is about getting the most marks in the time allowed. Getting stuck on one question is not precise, it's inefficient. Flag it. If you have time at the end, by all means, come back to it. But secure all the easy marks first.
One last behavioral trap, format phobia. This came up in the context of the spreadsheet questions.
Yes. The move to CBE, computer-based exams, has really freaked some students out. In the MA and FA exams, you sometimes have to use a spreadsheet tool.
And the trap is that students panic when they're asked to identify a formula, not just a number.
Yes. The question might ask, which formula would you use in cell C4 to calculate the total? And the options are things like SUM or 1.A4 or A1 plus A4.
And students freeze because they're used to writing numbers on paper, not thinking in Excel logic.
And the examiner emphasizes again and again that you must practice on the ACCA practice platform. You need to get used to the interface. It's not exactly Excel. It's a specific exam tool with its own quirks. If you walk in on exam day having never seen it before, the interface itself becomes the trap.
It's a technical trap, quite literally. Don't let the software be the reason you fail.
Use the specimen exams. They are free. There is no excuse for format phobia in this day and age.
Okay, we're heading into the final stretch. Section D, psychological traps. This is all about your mindset going into the exam.
This is the meta game. And honestly, the biggest psychological trap in foundations, particularly in FBT, is what we call the breadth versus depth fallacy.
The examiner used that great phrase, mile wide, inch deep, right?
Yes, and it's perfect. The syllabus for a paper like business and technology is huge. You've got economics, marketing, HR, accounting, ethics, technology. It is massive.
And the trap then is question spotting.
Students think, okay, I really like leadership theory, so I will study that deeply. I'll learn every single model. But I hate economics, so I'll just skip that chapter. Hopefully it won't come up.
But in an exam with 46 objective questions,
you cannot hide. The computer will pick questions from every single area of that syllabus. If you skip economics, you might lose 10 or 15% of the paper instantly. There's nowhere to run.
So the reality is you need a shallow understanding of everything.
Correct. You don't need to be a professional economist. You just need to know the basic definitions of supply and demand. You don't need to be a corporate lawyer. You just need to know the difference between criminal and civil law. Shallow but complete beats deep but narrow every single time at the foundations level.
Another psychological trap is the workplace experience bias. We sort of touched on this with the AI question, but there was another brilliant example about a woman named Shireen and time management.
Ah, yes. The Shireen scenario. A classic case study. The story describes Shireen as a very helpful colleague. She takes on everyone's work. She always says yes to everything. And as a result, she is completely overwhelmed.
Now, in a real office, what do we think of Shireen?
We think, what a trooper, what a great team player, she's helping everyone out, she deserves a raise.
But the question asks you to identify the time management barrier she is demonstrating.
And the syllabus answer is lack of assertiveness and poor prioritization.
Ouch. Sorry, Shireen. That feels incredibly harsh.
It feels harsh because we are used to social norms. But the exam isn't testing social norms, it's testing efficiency models from a textbook. The trap is letting your office nice guy brain answer the question. The syllabus views her inability to say no as a failure of effectiveness.
So you have to answer based on the textbook definition of assertiveness, not on what would get you a good performance review in real life.
It's cold, isn't it? But it is objective. The exam is not about social niceties, it is about efficiency models. If your answer is she is a great team player, you are wrong.
Finally, let's talk about the biggest psychological trap of all, the overconfidence of the first layer.
This is the real danger of the word foundation. Students look at these papers and they think, I'll just cram for a week. It's multiple choice. How hard can it be?
And then they get 48%.
They get 48% because they skipped the planning, they didn't read the requirements carefully, they rushed the reading, they fell for all the traps we've just discussed because they didn't treat the exam with respect.
And the bigger danger is not just failing this exam, it's what this does to your future.
Exactly. Let's say you pass, but you scrape through with 50% by guessing and rushing. You have built terrible habits. When you hit the skills level, where you have to write constructed responses in paragraphs, those habits will destroy you.
And the professional level.
And when you hit the professional level, the beast, you won't stand a chance. The complexity is on another level.
So treating foundations with respect is actually training for the later, harder stages.
You are building your professional muscle memory. If you are disciplined about reading requirements now, when the questions are short and simple, you will be disciplined later when the scenarios are 3 pages long. If you are sloppy now, you are just cementing sloppy behavior for the future.
Wow. That puts a lot more weight on these intro exams than I think most people give them.
They are the foundation of your competence, not just your certificate.
Okay, let's bring this all together. We've covered a lot of ground here, a lot of different tracks.
Yes.
So if you're listening to this and you are prepping for FBT, FMA, or FFA, here is your checklist. Here are the things to burn into your brain.
First, don't trust your common sense. Trust the syllabus definitions. AI is not just robots. Open discussion is not always good for a committee. And poor Shireen needs to be more assertive, whether her colleagues like it or not.
Second, watch your signs and navigation. In financial accounting, pause on every single adjustment. Visualize that T account. Is it a debit or a credit? Does this increase my cash or decrease it? And in group accounts, remember the proportional consolidation sin. You add 100% line by line because you control the whole house, not just the front door.
Third, read the requirement first. Always. Anchor your brain. Use the Searchlight method. Don't get lost in the story until you know exactly what you're looking for.
And fourth, sanity check. Please, for the love of accounting, do not submit an answer of 27 million days. Look at your answer. Avoid calculator hypnosis. Is this number reasonable in the real world? If not, you've probably just made a simple error with a decimal point. Fix it.
And finally, a meta point. Respect the exam, don't question spot, cover the breadth of the syllabus, and use these exams to build the discipline, the rigor, and the professional habits you will need for the rest of your career.
This is the first barrier. If you can clear these traps now, you aren't just passing a foundation paper. You are setting yourself up to absolutely crush the skills and professional levels later on.
Exactly. You are moving from a student who guesses their way through to a professional who knows how to think.
If this look into the examiner's mind helped you spot a trap you're about to fall into, hit that subscribe button. We don't want you to be the one submitting 27 million days.
Please don't be that person. The examiner has enough stories.
And drop us a comment below. Which of these traps are you most guilty of? Are you a format phobe? Are you a proportional consolidator? Be honest. Let us know.
It's much better to admit it now in the comments than to do it in the exam hall.
Absolutely. Thank you for listening. Keep studying, keep thinking, and always remember, host, speaker, and expert speaker, think ahead to step beyond 49%. See you next time.